He is the most powerful and notorious organized crime figure the U.S. has ever known. His life has captured the public imagination, and his gangster persona have inspired countless movies and TV shows. Born into the poverty of a Brooklyn ghetto, Alphonse Capone, or Scarface, rose to the head of a multi-million-dollar organization whose control of bootlegging, prostitution, and gambling dominated organized crime. Having evaded justice for innumerable acts of violence, he was finally brought to justice for income tax evasion in 1931, which began a decline into paranoid dementia brought on by a disease he refused to seek treatment for until it was too late. Of the so-called gangsters who have tried to make their mark in the 20th or 21st century, none has been able to hold a candle to Al Capone. Alphonse Capone was born in Brooklyn, New York on January 17, 1899. He was the fourth of 9 children of Gabrielle and Teresina Capone, recent Italian immigrants. His father worked as a barber and his mother as a seamstress. He attended school until the 6th grade, whence he dropped out at age 14 after striking a teacher. While working a variety of odd jobs, a candy store clerk, a bowling alley pin boy, and a laborer in an ammunition plant, he ran with the South Brooklyn Rippers and 40 Thieves Juniors, 2 of the many kid gangs common in New York at the time, known for vandalism and petty crime. At age 16, Capone graduated to the 5 Points Gang, which was run by Johnny Torrio, a man who would become his mentor in the ways of the syndicate. It was during this time they met his future wife, Mary Mae Coughlin. He served under mobster Francesco Iole, more commonly known as Frankie Yale, and worked as a bartender in Yale's brothel saloon, the Harvard Inn. During this time, Capone was involved in several violent incidents. At the Harvard Inn, a hoodlum named Frank Galluccio slashed Capone across his left cheek after Capone made an off-color remark to Galluccio's sister. Capone would afterwards be known as Scarface. In another incident, Capone brutally beat up a member of a rival gang, known as the White Hand. After White Hand gang leaders threatened retribution, Yale sent Capone, his wife, and his young child to Chicago to work for Torrio. Torrio had moved to Chicago in 1909 to help run the giant brothel business under Chicago crime boss Big Jim Colosimo. Shortly after Capone's arrival in the city in 1919, Colosimo was assassinated, presumably by either Yale or Capone, to allow Torrio to take over. With the advent of Prohibition, there was tremendous money to be made in bootlegging. But the competition and the violence was fierce. In 1924, Capone murdered Joe Howard in retribution for assaulting one of Capone's friends. Capone evaded being indicted when a fearful eyewitness denied remembering the incident. Later that year, Torrio and Capone recruited Yale and other associates to murder gang leader Diane O'Banion in his flower shop. After serving a short prison term, Torrio retired to Italy. Capone became the head of the Chicago Syndicate, running gambling, prostitution, and bootlegging operations and expanding his territories by gunning down rivals. In 1927, Capone's wealth was estimated at close to $100 million. On January 14, 1929, in what would become known as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, Capone's henchmen machine-gunned 7 members of Bugs Moran's gang in a garage on Chicago's North Side. Later that year, Capone served some 10 months in Holmesburg Prison in Philadelphia after being caught with a concealed handgun. His larger-than-life image fascinated the public and Hollywood. In 1932, Howard Hawks directed the motion picture Scarface, The Shame of a Nation, starring Paul Mooney as a gangster loosely based on Capone. Responding to the public outcry over the St. Valentine's Day massacre, President Herbert Hoover ordered the federal government to intensify its efforts to get Capone on income tax evasion. In 1927, the Supreme Court had ruled that income gained on illegal activities was taxable. This would be the basis for going after Capone. On June 5, 1931, Capone was indicted for 22 counts of federal income tax evasion for the years 1925 through 1929. On June 12th, Capone and others were charged with conspiracy to violate prohibition laws for the years 1922 to 1931. During the trial, Capone used bribery and intimidation, but at the last moment, the judge switched to an entirely new jury. In October, Capone was tried, found guilty on 3 of the 23 counts, and sentenced to 11 years in prison and $50,000 in fines and court costs. He entered Atlanta Penitentiary in May 1932, but 2 years later, after he was caught bribing guards, Capone was sent to the notorious island prison Alcatraz in 1934. On Alcatraz, isolated from the outside world, he could no longer wield his considerable influence. Moreover, he began suffering from poor health. Capone had contracted syphilis as a young man, and he started showing signs of dementia caused by neurosyphilis. After serving 6.5 years, Capone was released in 1939 to a mental hospital in Baltimore, where he remained for 3 years. His health continued to decline, and he spent his last days in Miami with his wife. He died of cardiac arrest on January 25, 1947. Al Capone remains a larger-than-life figure of fascination and even nostalgia. The soft focus of history tends to obscure the murder and extortion that drove his rise. We can be grateful to those decent people who didn't accept corruption as just doing business and had the guts to stand up to this malevolent, though charismatic force. This is Deviant Knowledge. Thanks for watching.